Hello to you all, and welcome to IMPROVATE's Cybersecurity 2021 conference. I'm Lauren Iso. Oren Aney is the CEO of RavenDB, a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional and an internationally known speaker on database architecture and design. Some of you may know him from his IENS blog, where he's been blogging about software and database development for the past 17 years. Before we start, let's take a moment to watch your company film.
You need a database that is easy to scale, fault-tolerant, and offers unlimited flexibility. Hibernating Rhinos presents RavenDB, the industry's pioneer NoSQL document database that is fully transactional across your entire database. Keep up with expanding data volume while continuing to increase performance using our non-relational solution that has been building on the ACID model for over a decade. You can install RavenDB in minutes with top-level security and encryption. Set up a multi-server data cluster and replicate your data to multiple nodes to provide non-stop availability for your users. Scale out instantly by adding new machines on demand to handle increasing traffic. RavenDB works well on older hardware, allowing you to maintain your existing IT infrastructure on cheaper machines. Reduce query times with our dynamic indexing. With every query, RavenDB will learn more about what you are doing and actively optimize the database to speed up your requests. The more you use RavenDB, the smarter it becomes in meeting your needs. Our dynamic MapReduce feature will aggregate data on the fly and keep it current. As a result, query times for your costliest computations will be reduced dramatically. Our Management Studio GUI is a DBA's dream. Monitor in real time the working status of all your servers. Enjoy easy-to-read visuals for your indexes and database operations that enable you to quickly pinpoint functional and performance issues. Persistent query subscriptions allow you to respond to changes in real time. Even if your application is offline, RavenDB will bookmark your progress so you can pick up where you left off. Tasks assigned to your database are automatically distributed across the cluster evenly to maintain optimal load balance. Ensure data safety by backing up your database to local drives, additional nodes, or to the cloud at desired intervals. Download RavenDB and get a free data cluster with 3 nodes, 3 cores, and 6 gigabytes of memory. Or take a free training session and become a NoSQL expert. Time is money, and RavenDB saves you both.
Okay, let's welcome Oren to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So what is unique about your approach of security database?
When you think about cyber attacks, you think about a nation state or a terrorist organization, and they're attacking some critical infrastructure. This week, we had an attack on a water processing plant in Florida where the attacker tried to poison the waters. They weren't successful, but the attack made international news. Now, the sad reality is that most attacks aren't sophisticated. You don't need AI for most of them. Quite a few, and you can see some of the high-profile attacks that will involve literally stepping through the open door. There was a welcome mat. Those attacks that you see here, and they are one of many that happened just over the past couple of years, involve putting critical infrastructure on the public internet with absolutely no security whatsoever, no password, no authentication. Welcome. The hacking tool used was a browser. And the reason for that is very simple. If you make security too complex, it doesn't get used. If you have an overly complex password policy, the end result is a sticky note on the monitor. That's it. And that defeats the whole point. And it turns out that I'm a database vendor, and I look at that and I'm horrified because I see people putting production database with critical information online, whatever this is, critical details, healthcare records, personal information, the heart and soul of the companies out there exposed to the world. And when we sat down and analyzed why this happened, we realized that the product in question had the required security features, but the setup involved was a 70-page document. And no one has time for that. So it gets delayed, and eventually you ship, and no one even knows that you're shipped with the door wide open. When we started designing the security for RavenDB, one of the things that we considered wasn't just having the right cryptographic primitives. What we wanted to do was a security that is on by default. We actually made it hard. RavenDB will refuse to run if it's set up in an unsecure manner. But that means that we took on ourselves the onus of security. We have to deal with all of that complexity, all of the required to run in a untrusted environment, in hosted networks, while still maintaining high level of security. And we did that to the point where you go click, click, next, 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 and you end up by default with a secure environment. And this approach for security, for saying, I want to take the burden of the complex stuff on myself, is something that we do quite often with RavenDB. For example, RavenDB will continuously analyze its own performance, its own activities. Let's say that you're in a Cyber Monday event or Black Friday or something like that, and suddenly your load goes from this to here. And this can happen in the space of a few minutes. The same thing can happen if you're under a denial of service attack. So typical reaction in this case is, let's scramble the operations team, let's try to find more hardware, let's do something. And that typically involves human agency and the possibility of errors. RavenDB is able to look at its own behavior, shift the resources around, effectively try to imagine that we shift gears in the car, and suddenly we are smooth sailing at a much higher load.
So what industries is your database being used in primarily?
We're being used in banking, finance, healthcare, government, defense projects. We are a generic database, so you can put any sort of data inside of RavenDB. The interesting thing, we are in a cyber security conference, but I think that RavenDB has the security features and they work and secure, but that's not the important thing that people use us for. They use us because with RavenDB, because we take on ourselves all of those things, because of the intelligent database engine, then we are able to reduce the time to market, both in terms of how much effort it takes and in production, how much hardware you need to actually run the system.
And is your database used widely in IoT?
Yeah, so the joke about Internet of Things, IoT, is that the S stands for security because there is none. And if you think about that, the number of devices that are out there that are internet connected is absolutely insane. And the level of security moves between horrible to none. And when you start thinking about, okay, how do I design an IoT strategy? How do I deploy to various locations? Then the amount of complexity that you have to deal with is very high. RavenDB is a distributed database, and it allows you, because it's efficient, you can run it on very low-end hardware. So the idea here is that you can deploy it as part of your IoT projects. It gathers all of the information from sensor data. It has capabilities specifically to handle that. And then it is able to sync all of that information to the cloud. And one of the things you have to be aware of in those sort of environment, when you're running on the edge, you have hardware out there. What happens if you have an attacker that actually reached those hardware? I got your server, now I can go and start modifying things. RavenDB is designed to run in such an untrusted environment and make sure that even if attacker actually got one of the edge location, they are limited in what kind of damage they can do.
All right, Oren Aini, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.